Ever feel like you're grinding it out at the poker table, maybe in a live game, and you just know there's a critical mistake holding you back from truly crushing it? What if I told you improving your poker game doesn't have to be, super complicated?
Yeah, exactly. It often feels more complex than it needs to be.
That's precisely what we're diving into today. We're going to pull back the curtain on a powerful, repeatable approach, something that's guided pro players for, what, over 15 years?
That's right. And it really boils down to just three essential questions.
So our mission today is to cut through all the noise, the complexity, and give you a practical tool set, something that simplifies your decisions, like whether to bet big, bet small, or check.
Mm-hmm. Especially in those really common spots, heads-up pots. You're in position, you raised preflop. Getting those right is huge.
Right. Boost your win rate, move up stakes confidently. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So the genius of this approach, it seems, lies in its simplicity. Like you said, three core questions.
Exactly. Three questions you ask yourself every single time you're in that spot. Heads up, in position as the preflop raiser.
And these aren't just like philosophical questions, right? They give you actual answers.
Absolutely. Actionable answers right there in the heat of the moment. And the first one, it's maybe the most fundamental. It immediately shifts how you see the hand.
Okay, what is it?
The question is, what is my opponent's range? Are they capped or uncapped?
Capped or uncapped? Okay, define those for us. What does uncapped mean here?
So an uncapped range, think of it like, well, they could have anything. All the strongest possible hands on that board top set, overpairs, strong draws, the works.
Because they haven't done anything yet to limit their holding.
Precisely. They haven't checked when they should bet or just called when a strong hand would raise. Their range is wide open, potentially holding the absolute nuts.
Okay, that sounds dangerous.
It is. And knowing that immediately tells you, okay, I need to be careful here. How much pressure can I really apply?
All right, so what about a capped range then?
A capped range is the opposite. Your opponent has taken an action that suggests they don't hold those super strong hands.
Like checking the turn.
Exactly. Checking the turn where a monster hand would almost always bet, or maybe just calling your bet on the flop or turn when a really strong hand might have raised. It puts a ceiling, a cap, on how strong their hand can realistically be.
Ah, okay. So you have a better idea of the maximum strength you're up against.
You got it. And what's fascinating here is understanding this distinction, capped versus uncapped. It's the very first and honestly the most important step. It directly influences how much heat to apply and what bet size makes sense.
That first question really does set the stage. Capped or uncapped?
Yeah.
It clarifies the immediate threat level. But okay, once we've got that read on their potential range, what's next? What else do we need to figure out?
Right, because even within that range, how they play their strong hands matters hugely.
Yeah, I mean, an opponent who slow plays a monster is totally different from one who comes out betting, right?
Totally different. And that leads straight into question 2. Will they fast play their strong hands on this board?
Fast play, meaning betting, raising aggressively.
Exactly. Fast playing is betting or raising with their strong hands to build the pot or protect against draws. You got to consider the board. Is it wet? Like lots of draws. Or dry.
And also the player type, presumably?
Oh, absolutely. Player tendencies are key here. But think about the board texture first. If they do tend to fast play on, say, a draw-heavy board, well, if you bet small, what might happen?
They might raise you with their big hands. Or call.
Yes, which is great for you. You build the pot when you're ahead or you get information. But if they don't fast play, maybe on a drier board or they're just passive.
They might just call your small bet. Or even check behind if you check, trying to trap.
Exactly. They might be trapping or just trying to control the pot size. So knowing if they'll fast play tells you if betting small actually gets value from their monsters, or if you need to, maybe bet bigger with your value hands or check behind more with your bluffs.
So it's about predicting their aggression level with their best hands on that specific texture.
You nailed it. It's like anticipating their next move based on the board and their style. Feels pretty good when you get that read right.
Okay, so step 1, assess their range, capped or uncapped. Step 2, predict their aggression. Will they fast play strong hands? Got it. Now, what's the final piece? Where do we fit into this?
Right. The spotlight turns back on us. The third question, just as vital, is what is our hand? Do we have value, showdown value, or a bluff?
Okay, break those down. Value hand.
A value hand is simple, it's strong, you're pretty confident you have the best hand, and you want to get called by worse hands. You're trying to build the pot, extract maximum value.
Makes sense. Showdown value.
Showdown value is trippier. It's a medium strength hand. Thumb like second pair, maybe top pair weak kicker, it can probably win if it gets to showdown without too much more betting.
But you don't really want to bet big with it.
Exactly. You're not strong enough to bet multiple streets for value usually, and it's not weak enough to turn into a bluff easily. You're often looking to check or maybe make a small, like, blocking bet or thin value bet. Pot control is often key.
Okay. And the last one, a bluff.
A bluff is straightforward too. Your hand has little or no chance of winning at showdown. You're purely trying to use your bet to apply pressure and make a better hand fold.
Got it. So value, showdown value, or bluff, categorizing our own hand.
Yep. And that categorization becomes your compass. It tells you, based on the answers to the first two questions, whether the right play now is likely a big bet, a small bet, or a check.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
answering these three questions essentially builds a kind of decision tree in your head.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's a decision flowchart. But crucially, it's not about memorizing some complex GTO chart. It's about an intuitive, repeatable process to quickly land on the most profitable line in that specific situation.
All right, theory is good, but let's get practical. Let's put this flowchart to work. Imagine we're at the table, maybe $2 and $5, chips in hand. How does this guide us on the flop, that first crucial street?
Yeah, the flop really sets the tone. Okay, classic spot. You open on the button, say $20. Big blind calls. Flop comes down, let's say 10 of spades, 8 of spades, 3 of clubs. Pretty wet board. Opponent checks to you.
Okay, 10, 8, 3, 2 spades. Opponent checks. Let's run the questions. Question 1, opponent's range, capped or uncapped?
Definitely uncapped here. They call it from the big blind. They could easily have sets, 10s, 8s, 3s. They could have two paired, like 10-8 suited, maybe even flush draws, straight draws combined with pairs. Their range is wide open to strong hands.
Okay, danger zone still.
Yeah.
Question 2, will they fast play strong hands on this board? 10, 8, 3 with a flush draw.
Oh, yeah. Most live players on a board this wet and dynamic, they're going to want to bet or raise their strong hands. They want to build the pot and, crucially, protect against all those draws out there. Fast playing is very likely.
Right, makes sense. Okay, question 3, what's our hand? Let's run through a few options. What if we have, say, 7 high, a complete bluff?
Okay, total air.
Or what if we have pocket 8s, middle set? That's pretty strong showdown value, maybe even value depending on the opponent.
Yeah, let's call that showdown value bordering on full value for now. Middle set is strong.
Okay. And what if we have pocket 10s, top set, clear value hand?
Definitely full value.
So bluff, showdown value, full value. What does the framework recommend here?
Okay, here's where it might surprise some people. The recommendation is generally to bet small with all three types of hands. Here, your bluff, your middle set, and your top set.
Small with everything. Okay, this raises an important question. Why? Why bet small even with top set? And why bet small with a bluff instead of maybe checking?
Great questions. Let's take the value hands first, like middle or top set. Why bet small? Because your opponent is likely to fast play their strong hands, remember? A small bet invites them to raise you.
Ah, so you're inducing action, letting them put money in when you have them crushed.
Exactly. You're setting a trap, sort of cooling them for later streets. If you bet big, they might just flat call with hands you crush or fold out hands you want action from. Small bets keep their range wider, including bluffs and weaker hands they might call with.
Okay, that makes sense for value. What about the bluff, like 7 high? Why bet small instead of just giving up?
Because a small bet achieves a lot here too. One, it can still get folds from hands that have some equity against you, like ace high or king high. Two, it's cheaper than a big bluff. Three, it balances your small value bets. If you only bet small with monsters, good opponents will pick up on it.
So the small bet works for bluffs and value in this specific scenario. Uncapped opponent, likely to fast play.
Correct. It keeps things tricky for them.
Now, I can hear some listeners thinking, especially about that middle set, pocket 8s. The instinct is often, why not just check back? It's got showdown value. Let's control the pot, avoid getting blown off our hand.
Yeah.
Why bet small instead of checking?
And that instinct, while common, often leaves money on the table against typical live players. Why? Because live players often make two key mistakes you can exploit here.
But you are.
One, they call too wide preflop and on the flop. They'll call that small flop bet with lots of hands. Two, they often raise too aggressively or too frequently with their strong hands on boards like this.
So by betting small with our medium-strength hands.
You're funneling them into making those mistakes. You get value from their wide calls, and if they raise, you often have an easy call, knowing their range might be too aggressive. You extract value from their leaks instead of checking and letting them off the hook or letting them realize their equity for free.
Okay, that's a powerful insight into exploiting typical live play. But not all flops are like 10-8-3, right? What if the board is different? What if opponents want fast play?
Excellent point.
Yeah.
The strategy shifts. Let's take another example. Say you open with 8-9 of spades on the button, big blind calls, flop comes ace of clubs, 6 of diamonds, 3 of spades, very dry ace-high board, opponent checks.
A6-3 rainbow. Much drier. Okay, question 1. Opponent's range.
Still uncapped. They defend at the big blind. They can easily have sets here, aces, sixes, threes. They can have ace-x for top pair. Range is still potentially strong.
Gotcha. Question 2. Will they fast play strong hands on this board? A6-3 rainbow.
Probably no. This is the key difference. On a dry, static board like this, many strong hands, like top pair or even sets, sometimes feel pretty safe. Players often shift into slow play mode or pot control mode. They're less likely to bet or raise aggressively. They might try to trap you.
Okay, so they're less likely to give us that aggressive action we saw on the wet board.
Yeah.
Now, question 3. Our hand is 8-9 of spades. That's a clear bluff, right? Just a gut shot straight draw and backdoor flush draw, but basically air.
Right, essentially a bluff or maybe a semi-bluff at best.
So what's the play here according to the framework? Uncapped opponent, unlikely to fast play, and we have a bluff.
In this scenario, betting small with your bluff is much less effective. Why? Because they're not going to raise you much with their strong hands. They're slow playing. Your small bet might just fold out the absolute junk you beat anyway and get called by everything else. It doesn't achieve much.
So check back.
Yes. The flowchart often recommends checking back with both your air bluffs and your marginal showdown value hands on the flop in this specific situation when they're uncapped but unlikely to fast play.
Interesting. So we save the bluff money. What about our strong value hands here? Like if we had pocket aces for top set.
Now that's different. With your strong value hands on this type of board where they won't fast play, you generally want to bet big right away.
Why big?
Because they're unlikely to raise you, so you need to build the pot yourself. And since they're often slow playing or calling with weaker hands, a big bet gets maximum value from those holdings immediately. You don't want to give free cards or let the pot stay small when you have a monster and they're likely to call.
Okay, so the bet sizing strategy flips based on whether they fast play or not. That's a crucial adjustment.
Huge adjustment. It all ties back to those first two questions.
So we've laid some solid groundwork for the flop, but poker continues, right? Turn, river. How does this strategy evolve, especially when, as you mentioned earlier, an opponent really caps their range?
Yes, this is where the framework gets even more powerful, I think. When your opponent takes an action like checking the turn after calling the flop, or just calling your turn bet that strongly suggests they don't have a monster, their range becomes capped.
So that gives us a big advantage.
A massive advantage. You now have information they don't necessarily know you have. You know their range is weaker, which opens up huge opportunities to apply pressure with bluffs or go for thinner value.
Okay, give us a turn example where this comes into play.
All right, let's revisit that first board type. Say it was Jack-9-4 on the flop. And maybe you bet small and they called, or perhaps you both checked the flop. Now the turn card comes a queen, and your opponent checks to you again.
Okay, J9-4 flop, turn queen. They check the turn.
By checking that turn card, especially if they just called the flop, they've almost certainly capped themselves. A strong hand, like two pair, a set, maybe even a straight now. They would very likely bet that queen turned themselves for value or protection. Checking signals weakness.
So their range is capped. Now, what's the next thought?
We then need to consider, do they have inelastic hands in that capped range?
Inelastic, meaning hands that will call a bet regardless of the size.
Pretty much. Hands that are kind of sticky. Maybe they have a weak queen like QT. Maybe they have a stubborn jack pair. Or maybe even just ace-high they're determined to get to showdown with. They're not folding easily, even to a big bet.
Okay, so on this J9-4 cue board, after they check the turn, do they often have those inelastic hands?
Yes, very often in live games. So now what do we do? If you have a bluff here, what does the flowchart suggest?
Well, if they have inelastic hands, that might call anyway. Maybe bet big to try and fold out some of their range, maximize fold equity against the hands that might fold.
Exactly. Bet big with your bluff on the turn against a capped range with inelastic hands. You put maximum pressure on those stubborn holdings. Now, what if you have a value hand here? Say you turned trip queens or made a straight.
Well, if they have inelastic hands that are likely to call, I guess you bet big for value too. Get the most money in while they're likely to call with worse.
Bingo! So notice what happened. On the turn, against a capped range that likely has inelastic hands, both your bluffs and your value hands often want to use the same sizing, a big bet. One for pressure, one for value, but both aiming to maximize their goal against that specific capped range.
That's fascinating. Bluffs and value taking the same line on the turn in that spot. Does that pattern hold up on the river?
The river introduces a really key nuance. It often diverges on the river.
How so?
Let's say we get to the river. Your opponent's range is still capped. Now consider their remaining hands. If you think they still have some hands they might fold to a big bet, what should your bluff do?
Bet big, right. To maximize the chance they fold those hands.
Correct. Maximize fold equity with a big bluff. But now, think about your value hand. You want to get called by their weaker capped hands. If you bet huge, might they find a fold with those bluff catchers?
Yeah, possibly. So maybe you should bet smaller with value.
Exactly. On the river, against a capped range, your value bets often want to be smaller size to get called by the weaker hands you beat. Your bluffs, however, often want to go bigger to force folds from anything that might hero call a smaller bet.
Wow. So same line on the turn, often, but different sizings for bluffs and value on the river against capped ranges.
That's the critical nuance. What's fascinating here is mastering this divergence in bet sizing on the river is a huge step in maximizing your profits in these common spots.
Okay, if we connect this all back, after running through these examples, some clear patterns seem to be emerging, things for you, the listener, to really latch onto.
Absolutely. Let's summarize those key patterns. First, opponent is uncapped. A&D fast plays strong hands, like that wet T8-3 flop. General rule, bet small on flop and turn with your entire range value, showdown, bluffs. Keep their range wide, induce action.
Okay, pattern 2.
Second, opponent is uncapped. BUT won't fast play strong hands like the dry A663 flop. General rule, bet big with value hands to build the pot yourself. Check back more often with bluffs and marginal showdown hands.
Got it, pattern 3.
Third, opponent is capped, shown weakness like checking turn. General rule, on the turn, your value hands and bluffs often want the same line, usually a big bet, either for value against inelastic hands or pressure.
Right, the convergence on the turn. And the last one.
Fourth, on the river against capped opponents, general rule, your value bets tend to go smaller to get called by worse. Your bluffs tend to go bigger to force folds. The river divergence.
Those 4 patterns seem like incredibly useful heuristics. And you mentioned bet sizing big and small. Just to clarify, these aren't strict percentages.
No, not strictly. Especially in live poker, the absolute dollar amount often matters more psychologically than the exact pot percentage. Small might be, 30% to 50% of the pot. Big could be 75% pot size, even an overbet sometimes. It's about understanding how that specific opponent is likely to react to that specific amount in that specific situation.
Context is key.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this raises, I think, an important question. We live in an age where GTO poker solvers balance. That's what everyone talks about. So why is simplifying your strategy like this the best move for, most players, especially in live low to mid stakes games? Isn't there a risk of being exploited if you're not perfectly balanced?
That's a brilliant question, and it really hits the nail on the head. Look, trying to perfectly replicate GTO, memorizing charts, it's incredibly difficult and frankly often counterproductive in typical live games.
Why counterproductive?
Because those games aren't filled with GTO robots. They're filled with humans who make predictable mistakes, who have biases, who overbluff or underbluff, who call too much or fold too much. Trying to be perfectly balanced against someone who is wildly unbalanced often means you leave money on the table.
So this simplified framework is more about exploiting their imbalances.
Exactly. It's an exploitative strategy at its core. It allows for faster, clearer, and ultimately more profitable decisions because it's designed to attack the common leaks you see every day in live poker. You're maximizing value when ahead, applying effective pressure with bluffs, all without tying your brain in knots trying to achieve perfect theoretical balance.
So it's prioritizing practical profit over theoretical perfection.
Precisely. It's about making the most money in the games you actually play. And by adapting based on the 3 questions, you're constantly adjusting to your specific opponent, which makes you harder to exploit than you might think.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So for our listeners, for you the learner, who wants to start applying this today, where's the starting point? How do you integrate this at your next session without getting overwhelmed?
Start focused. Really zero in on those specific spots first.
Mm.
You're in position, it's heads up, and you were the preflop raiser. That's
Yeah.
your laboratory. Get comfortable there.
And then post-flop.
Post-flop, consciously pause, flop, turn, river. Before you act, mentally run through the 3 questions. 1, opponent's range capped or uncapped. 2, will they fast play strong hands here? 3, my hand value showdown or bluff.
Just take that moment to ask the questions.
Yes. Use the answers to guide your decision check. Bet small, bet big. Then, crucially, observe how your opponent reacts. Did they react how you expected? Adjust your reads for next time. It's a loop. Question, decide, observe, adjust.
Practice makes perfect, essentially.
Repetition makes it intuitive. It becomes second nature over time.
What about different player types? Does this framework handle, say, a super passive player versus a maniac, or online play versus live?
Absolutely. It's flexible. Against a super passive player, you'll find they cap their range all the time by checking. The framework will naturally tell you to bluff more and value bet thinner. Against a maniac, they're often uncapped and fast-playing everything. The framework adjusts accordingly, maybe calling down lighter or trapping more.
So you adjust your answers to the questions based on the player type.
Exactly. The framework stays the same, but your inputs change based on reads and online. The core principles absolutely apply. You might adjust your assumptions about typical ranges or fast play frequencies based on online tendencies, but the logic holds. It's still about exploitative adjustments.
This really hammers home the power of those 3 questions. It feels like such an elegant way to simplify complex spots.
It really is. The goal isn't more complexity, it's finding reliable, repeatable actions that work.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it feels like it's less about just bet sizing and more about a fundamental shift in thinking.
I agree. It's about moving away from feeling overwhelmed by infinite possibilities and towards a clear, simple, but powerful framework. Discipline within that framework and adapting based on observation, that's what drives real improvement and, let's be honest, puts more money in your stack.
So for you, the learner, the biggest takeaway here isn't just a betting formula. It's shifting your mindset from maybe confusion or complexity towards elegant simplicity. It's about empowering yourself to understand and, yes, exploit the human side of poker.
Well said. Take the questions, use them consistently, adapt them, you'll see results.
Go put it into practice. Good luck out there.